Welcome to Ritual Skill Modelling. This is part 6 of Tamiya's Kawasaki Ninja, the ZX-12R. Scale is 1 to 12. In this part 6, I'm going to be carrying directly where I left off in part 5, so concentrating on the front portion of the bike, working on the front wheel, handlebars and so on. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. So I start working building up the handlebars. The first thing to do on this part of the video is to add this pipework or ducting. This is going to be for the brakes. There's a couple of little location points from the handlebars. Then also the hose feeds down into the brake mechanism on the wheel. I suggest fitting these as soon as you can, because you can quickly run out of room. And when you cut them, make sure you have a couple of millimeters over, just to give you a little bit of play. There's plenty of this pipe ducting stuff for you to do that. So don't worry if you're thinking, oh, I may run out. You shouldn't run out if you add a couple of millimeters onto it. Now each one is secured with a little bit of super glue, and it just gets pushed into the connection. But on with the lengths, make sure that you are getting the right length. There is various sizes that you have to cut off. For instance, this longer part here goes directly underneath the handlebars. So it's onto the actual wheel now, and it's a simple assembly. As you can see, I pre-painted it. And I had difficulty here taking away the paint on the contact points. Now the river contrast cement should actually handle it as long as the paint's not too thick, but I think it was just the angle of the wheel hub that I couldn't quite get my knife in to scrape off the paint, but it did hold. Of course, if you're uncomfortable with that, you can paint it once it's all assembled. It just makes the painting a little bit more difficult. Not impossible, just a little bit more difficult. Now the camera's not really going to pick this up too well because of the colour, but starting to connect some of these lines up. Now this one goes direct onto the engine. It's the longer one. I waited a good few minutes before each anchor point was secured before bending it around. Now have a look where your forks of your wheel's going to be in your handlebars, but when you turn you don't want them to impede. So have a play about with the movement and make sure you've got them within an area that's going to be free moving. For instance, I put mine over the fork. It wasn't ideal, so I actually changed that and put it underneath the fork. When you're doing this, if you're unsure what the connection points are, these are the connection points that I painted in the green colour, so it's easier to stand out for when you fit these pipes or ducts, whatever you call them. So once they're connected, you should only be left with two ones waiting to be connected. These are the ones that are going to go directly onto the wheel. And now the wheel's dry, I can simply push on the tyre. Now this tyre actually went on a little bit easier. The little centre hub thing there just popped off. That was the one I couldn't scrape the paint off there. I will address that. I will make it more secure. I probably just put too much pressure on when I was putting on the tyre. This tyre was easier to put on actually than the back wheel. Onto the suspension struts, and these were painted in Tamiya's X31 titanium gold and Revel 99 aluminium. Just as a recap, once everything was dry, there's the little silver foil that I have to place on here. Now, these foils are discovered, printed out, but they're not actually all individually cut. You have to cut them yourself, which is slightly annoying. The border does have a printed layout for you to, as a guide to cut, but they really should have just been cut as a transfer. They went on simple enough. I suppose they done this because chrome is very difficult to recreate in paint form. It's one of the reasons why I hate using chrome. I should have maybe used a different paint to simulate the chrome, but I suppose the foil does give it that really shiny look. Once the foil was on, it's time to assemble the suspension struts. Now these are held on with a single screw. It's easy enough to assemble. They're easy enough to line up. Just beware of the location of the brake calipers and in relation to the direction of the tyre. It can actually be quite easy to put them in the wrong way, and therefore your wheel would be the wrong way around. Now you don't want to over tight these, again, you want to make sure they have plenty of movement on the wheel. Next is to place on the mudguard. Now this is where I had to decide once and for all whether I was going to paint these or leave it with the semi-clear plastic. So as you can see there, I decided to leave it semi-clear. I think that's a good choice. It's moulded like that for a reason, and there's nothing wrong with painting it, but I do like the idea of seeing the working mechanisms through the plastic. The location points for these are very simple. There's a little groove cut into the piston side of it, and the mudguard itself then just gets pushed into it. Now I've used normal cement for this because I need a good strong bond for this. You can use canopy glue, for instance, but I found on this, well, I found out later on down the build that the canopy glue wasn't quite taking with this type of plastic. Some of it was not holding as well as I would have liked, so I'm glad I used the normal cement for this. If you are using the normal cement, once you put it on, just give it a minute or so for the vapours to evaporate. That way you'll avoid any of the clear plastic clouding or fogging up. Here I'm using Tamiya's X18 semi-gloss black to paint the housing for the lights, and it's the same with this cap. The cap does have the X18 colour, but the central part of the fuel cap I'm painting with XF16 flat aluminium. Now I don't often do this, but it is actually better to paint black on the background before you paint a silver colour. It just makes the silver come more alive. It gives it a more depth colour. So now unassembling the fuel tank, I should point out I painted this in Hombro's 56 aluminium. Now the reason I'm not using Tamiya or anything like that is two reasons. One, the aluminium on the Umbro side, I think it's a better finish. It gives it a more flat, smoother finish. And two, you need less coats. With the Tamiya one, I would have to build up the colour for the same effect. So I prefer to use the Umbro one for this. I moved on to the instrument panel and placing on the decals. Now I've used microset as my decal solution. The background is painted with the standard X18 semi-gloss black. There's only 3 decals to put on here, and there's no main issues when putting them on. They tend to want to ride up a little bit in the instrument panel housing, so the decal solution is your best idea for all that to sink into it. There's a little seam line that I'm just sanding down here, so once I've done that I'll repaint it before moving on. It just takes seconds to do. And then once that was done, I was able then to put on the fuel cap, and as you can see, that just fits right in the centre there without too much hassle at all. There is a little location pin for it to line up if you wish. Now it's back to the headlights, and as you can see, the headlights are the chrome plastic that came with the kit, and they're easy enough to fit. Just a little bit of cement in the perspective housing, then they just push on. You may find it slightly awkward matching up the location point inside the housing, but and that's just the nature of the shape of it. Now using canopy glue to fit the lens of the main lights. However, as I said earlier on, that didn't really hold the plastic too well. In the end, I didn't record it, but I took it off and placed a tiny little bit of normal cement. Let it rest for about a minute before actually reapplying the lens, and it worked out okay. So as you see, I've moved on to the feet pegs and kickstart, and they're painted in XF1 flat black and X32 titanium silver. The back foot plates are painted in the same colours, and these are secured with these screws. Now these were a little bit tricky to fit. It's just the angle that you have to place them in. The holes, I think they were a little bit smaller than the screw, so I had to dig in just to make sure they fitted in. Maybe just use a bit of cement would be wise here instead of the screws. This took me about 10 minutes to fit, if that's something ridiculous like that. It was, I had a real difficulty fitting them. But I got them done in the end, and once they were in, it was time to fit the pegs and kickstart, and each one had its own little location point to follow into, so there was no drama fitting these. However, things are starting to get a bit tight inside there, so you may take a lot of manoeuvring just to get them in place, but you really shouldn't have any main problems fitting them. Next is to fit the front wheel, and I'm just pointing out here the area where the forks get pushed into. Now you can cement them or you can just leave them. It's entirely up to you. I just left them, so you've got plenty of movement. I then connected the brake lines. That's the two little hose ducts that were left hanging down before connected the wheel. They were easy enough to fit. I didn't actually leave enough leeway on the pipe itself. I had to stretch it a little bit, but luckily the super glue held. Then it's back to the rear of the bike, and I'm placing in the other foot plate again with screws. This one was easier to fit actually than the other one. I suppose it's just the nature of these things. I had no difficulty with this one whatsoever. There is a couple of other brake lines to fit. That's the two ducting that you see on the mat there, and they're going pretty much the same way as the front ones. They get placed onto the connection points. This one was a little bit trickier because it's way back near the beginning of the build. I painted this little connection point that was white. I didn't look far ahead on the instructions to see what that was connected to. I should have done, because it's connected to this brake line here. I did get it fitted this way, but it was quite difficult. But that was the only true difficult one I had to fit. Once it was actually on and secured, the other ones went in easily enough. Then once they were in, it was a case of fitting the rear brake pedal or lever. Again, easy enough to fit. It's just a lack of room now. It's taken a little bit more time to fit these parts. I should point out as well, this is one of the longer parts of the build, because each one you have to wait until it's dry before moving on to the next part. It's because they all back onto each other, so you want to make sure each one has a secure anchor point before fitting the next part on. Next is the fuel tank, and that's attached at the back with a screw to create a latch. Again, before the screws, don't over tighten them, because you may want this fuel tank to flip up and down. Once I got the screws centered, it was easy enough to tighten up. Next to go on is the instrument panel that sits in a housing on the back of the panel onto a solid disc that runs up from the frame of the bike, or the front of where the handlebars are, obviously. But you can see the circular section there that it fits into. Then it's back to the rear and the brake light now. The inside has a silver foil like the other lights, but this is covered with a red lens. To be honest with you, I don't actually see what was really necessary for the silver foil with the red lens going on, but that's what I called for, so that's what I did. There's a little decal that goes on the fuel tank, which I'm placing on here. Now the rear light's dried, I can simply place that on it. It pushes onto the back of this old little housing. It went on fairly easily enough. And once that's done, it's time to put on the front lights. And as I'm putting this on, this is where I'll end part 6. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds? If you subscribe to the channel, please do so. Make sure you hit the notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to date not only with this build, but all my future builds as well, of course. Hit the like button. Don't be afraid to leave a comment. And of course, you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.